The morning sun cast long shadows across the military base as Sarah Martinez walked through the compound gates for the first time. Her boots made steady sounds on the concrete as she carried her duffel bag over one shoulder. The guards at the entrance had looked at her twice, their eyes questioning whether this young woman really belonged at one of the most elite training facilities in the country. Sarah had grown up in a small town in Nevada where her father worked as a mechanic and her mother taught elementary school. Nobody in her family had ever served in the military, but Sarah had always felt different from the other kids. While they played video games or watched movies, she spent her free time climbing the rocky hills behind their house, or practicing with the bow her grandfather had given her for her 12th birthday. Her grandfather, Miguel, had been the one person who truly understood her. He had served in Vietnam and rarely talked about his time there, but he recognized something special in Sarah. During their long walks in the desert, he taught her how to read the wind, how to move silently through different terrain, and most importantly, how to be patient and wait for the right moment. Patience is the hunter's greatest weapon. He used to tell her, "Anyone can be fast or strong, but few can truly wait." When Sarah turned 18, she surprised everyone by announcing she was joining the Navy. Her parents worried about their quiet daughter entering such a tough world, but Miguel just smiled and nodded. "She has something inside her," he told them, "something that needs to find its purpose." Basic training had been challenging, but not impossible for Sarah. She was smaller than most of the other recruits, standing only 5'4" tall, but she had an endurance that surprised everyone. While others struggled with the physical demands, Sarah seemed to find energy reserves that kept her going when others quit. Her instructors noticed her unusual abilities during the survival training exercises. While other recruits panicked when left alone in the wilderness, Sarah thrived. She could find water sources others missed, build shelters that actually worked, and most remarkably, she could track and hunt small game with tools she made herself. "Where did you learn these skills, Martinez?" Sergeant Thompson asked her one evening after she had successfully completed a 3-day survival challenge that had caused several other recruits to drop out. "My grandfather taught me some things," Sarah replied simply. She never talked much about her background, preferring to let her actions speak for themselves. After completing basic training near the top of her class, Sarah was selected for specialized training programs. Her scores on marksmanship tests were exceptional. But what really set her apart was her ability to remain completely still for hours at a time. During one exercise, she had stayed in position for 8 hours straight, watching a target area without moving more than necessary to breathe. The instructors began calling her the statue because of her incredible patience and stillness. Other trainees joked about it, but they also respected her abilities. Sarah didn't mind the nickname. She was focused on something bigger than what others thought of her. Her real test came during advanced reconnaissance training. The exercise was designed to push trainees to their limits. They were dropped in unfamiliar territory and given a series of objectives to complete while avoiding detection by opposing forces, played by experienced soldiers. Most trainees tried to complete the mission, quickly thinking speed would be their advantage. Sarah took a different approach. She spent the first day simply observing, learning the patterns of the opposing forces, understanding their routines and weaknesses. She noticed that they expected quick movement and were prepared for that kind of action. On the second day, while other trainees were being captured or giving up, Sarah began her movement. She moved only during specific times when she had observed the guards were least alert. She used natural cover and moved so slowly that even trained eyes couldn't detect her motion. By the third day, Sarah had completed all her objectives while the opposing forces were still searching for her. When the exercise ended and she revealed her position, she was less than 50 yards from the command post where the opposing team had been coordinating their search. "How long have you been there?" asked Captain Wilson, the officer running the exercise. "Since yesterday afternoon," Sarah replied calmly. The story of her performance during that exercise spread quickly through the training facility. Word reached higher levels of command, and Sarah found herself being considered for programs she had never even heard of. Lieutenant Commander James Harrison was the one who first mentioned the SEALs to her. He visited the training facility to observe promising candidates and had heard about Sarah's exceptional performance. "Have you ever considered special operations?" he asked her during a private meeting. Sarah had heard of the SEALs. Of course, everyone in the Navy knew about them, but she had never seriously considered that path for herself. The SEALs were famous for being the toughest, most elite warriors in the military. They were usually big, strong men who could handle any physical challenge. "I'm not sure I fit the profile," Sarah said honestly. Lieutenant Commander Harrison smiled. "The teams are changing. We're looking for different kinds of skills now. Your abilities in reconnaissance and patience could be exactly what we need for certain types of missions." Over the following weeks, Sarah learned more about what the SEALs actually did. It wasn't just about being big and strong, though. Physical fitness was certainly important. They needed people who could think clearly under pressure, who could adapt to different situations, and who had specialized skills that could help the team succeed in various types of operations. Sarah's shooting skills, her ability to remain undetected, and her talent for observation were exactly the kinds of abilities that could be valuable to a SEAL team. After much consideration and encouragement from her instructors, she decided to apply for the training program. The application process was intense. There were physical tests, psychological evaluations, and extensive background checks. Sarah passed each stage, though she knew the real challenge would come if she was accepted into the actual training program. When the acceptance letter arrived, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She was about to begin the most difficult training program in the military, competing against some of the toughest and most capable people in the armed forces. Her grandfather called her the night before she left for SEAL training. "Remember what I taught you?" He said simply, "Trust your instincts and never give up on yourself." The first day of SEAL training arrived with a wake-up call at 4:30 in the morning. Sarah had barely slept, but she felt alert and ready as she joined the other candidates on the beach. Looking around at her fellow trainees, she realized she was the only woman in the group of 32 candidates. The other men were impressive physical specimens. Most were over 6 feet tall, with muscled builds that spoke of years of intense training. They looked at Sarah with curiosity and some skepticism. She could hear whispered conversations, questioning whether she belonged there. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Rodriguez was the lead instructor, a man whose reputation for being tough but fair was known throughout the Navy. He had been a SEAL for 15 years and had served in multiple combat deployments. When he looked at the group of candidates, his expression was serious, but not unfriendly. "Welcome to basic underwater demolition SEAL training," he announced. "Over the next 6 months, we will push you beyond what you think is possible. Most of you will not complete this program. That's not a threat. It's a fact. Only those who have the mental toughness and physical capability to be SEALs will earn the right to join the teams." The first weeks were designed to weed out candidates who weren't serious about the commitment. The physical training was intense, with long runs on the beach, swimming in cold ocean water, and exercises that tested every muscle group. Sarah struggled with some of the strength-based challenges, where her smaller size was a disadvantage, but she excelled in endurance activities. During the swimming portions, Sarah discovered she had a natural ability in the water. While some of the bigger men fought against the ocean currents, Sarah seemed to flow with them. She learned to use the water's natural movement to help her, rather than fighting against it. "Martine, where did you learn to swim like that?" asked Instructor Peterson, after Sarah had completed a long-distance ocean swim ahead of several candidates who had been college swimmers. "I didn't really swim much growing up," Sarah admitted. "I guess I just try to work with the water instead of against it." The mental challenges were just as difficult as the physical ones. The instructors constantly tested the candidates' ability to think clearly under stress. They would wake them up in the middle of the night for surprise exercises, or change the rules of an exercise without warning to see how quickly candidates could adapt. Sarah's ability to stay calm under pressure served her well during these tests. While other candidates became frustrated or panicked when faced with unexpected challenges, Sarah would pause, assess the new situation, and find a way to complete the objective. One exercise particularly highlighted her unique abilities. The candidates were divided into teams and given a navigation challenge in dense forest terrain. Each team had to reach specific checkpoints while avoiding detection by instructors playing the role of enemy forces. Most teams tried to move quickly through the forest, thinking speed would help them avoid detection. Sarah's team was initially skeptical when she suggested they move very slowly and carefully, taking time to observe each area before advancing. "We'll never finish in time if we go that slow," complained Jackson, a former college football player who had emerged as one of the stronger candidates. "Speed won't matter if we get caught," Sarah replied calmly. "Let me show you something." She demonstrated how to move through the forest, using techniques her grandfather had taught her. She showed them how to step to avoid breaking twigs, how to use natural cover effectively, and how to read the forest sounds to know when other people were nearby. At first, the other team members were impatient with her methods, but as they progressed through the course and saw other teams being captured by the instructors, they began to understand the value of her approach. Sarah's team was the only one to complete the entire course without being detected. When they reached the final checkpoint, they found instructors waiting with surprised expressions. "How did you get past checkpoint 3?" asked Chief Rodriguez. "We had 2 instructors positioned there specifically to catch anyone trying to move through that area." Sarah's teammate Thompson spoke up. "Martinez showed us how to move like ghosts. We were close enough to see them, but they never knew we were there." Chief Rodriguez looked at Sarah with new interest. "Where did you learn those techniques my grandfather taught me how to hunt?" Sarah said simply. Word of Sarah's performance during the forest exercise spread among the instructors. They began watching her more carefully, not because they doubted her abilities, but because they were curious to see what other skills she might demonstrate. The underwater training phases were where Sarah truly began to stand out. The candidates had to learn combat diving, underwater navigation, and how to approach targets from the water without being detected. Many of the candidates struggled with these skills, finding it difficult to maintain orientation underwater or to control their breathing effectively. Sarah approached underwater training with the same patience and observation skills she used on land. She spent extra time learning to read underwater currents and understanding how light and shadow worked beneath the surface. While other candidates fought against the underwater environment, Sarah learned to use it to her advantage. During one exercise, candidates had to approach a simulated enemy position from the water and plant a training device without being detected. The enemy forces were positioned with lights and guards specifically to spot anyone trying to approach from the ocean. Most candidates tried direct approaches, swimming straight toward the target, and hoping to avoid detection through speed or staying deep underwater. Several were caught immediately, while others managed to get close, but were spotted before they could complete their mission. When it was Sarah's turn, she took time to study the target area from a distance. She noticed that the guards had predictable patterns in how they moved and where they looked. She also observed that there were areas where the lights created shadows on the water. Instead of swimming directly toward the target, Sarah positioned herself to use the ocean currents to drift slowly into position. She timed her movement to coincide with the guards' patrol patterns and used the shadows created by the lights to remain invisible. Not only did she successfully plant the training device, but the guards never realized she had been there. When the exercise ended and she surfaced near the target, the instructors were amazed. "Martinez, how long were you in position near the target?" asked Instructor Williams. "About 20 minutes, Sarah replied. 20 minutes. The guards were right there. How did they not see you?" Sarah explained her technique of using the natural movement of the water and the timing of the guards' patterns. The instructors looked at each other with expressions that seemed to communicate something important. That evening, Chief Rodriguez called Sarah aside for a private conversation. "Martinez, your approach to these exercises is unlike anything we typically see here. You have natural abilities that could be very valuable to the teams, but I want you to understand something important." He paused, studying her face carefully. "The teams are going to test you in ways you haven't experienced yet. Some of the men you'll be working with have never served alongside a woman in combat situations. They'll be watching to see if you can truly handle what the job requires." Hell Week arrived like a storm that everyone could see coming, but no one could truly prepare for. Of the original 32 candidates who had started training, only 18 remained. The others had been eliminated due to injuries, inability to meet the physical standards, or simply deciding that SEAL training was not for them. Sarah had survived every challenge so far, but she knew that Hell Week was designed to break even the strongest candidates. For 5 days and 5 nights, they would get no more than 4 hours of sleep total, while enduring constant physical and mental challenges. The week began with a midnight wake-up call, and immediately threw the candidates into freezing ocean water. The instructors used hoses to spray cold water on them, while they performed exercises on the beach. The combination of cold exhaustion and constant pressure was designed to simulate the worst possible conditions they might face in real operations. By the second day, several more candidates had quit. The famous bell that candidates could ring to end their training had been rung 4 times, and each time, Sarah watched another person give up their dream of becoming a SEAL. Sarah's strategy for surviving Hell Week was the same approach she used for everything else: patience and mental focus. While other candidates fought against the discomfort and exhaustion, Sarah accepted it as temporary conditions she had to work through. During the log carry exercises, where teams had to carry heavy wooden logs over long distances, Sarah's smaller size became a disadvantage. The logs were designed for larger men, and she struggled to maintain her grip and keep up with the pace her team needed. Jackson, who had initially doubted her methods during the forest exercise, surprised her by offering encouragement. "Come on, Martinez. We've all seen what you can do. Don't let a piece of wood beat you." The team adjusted their technique to help Sarah maintain her position, and she pushed through the pain in her shoulders and arms. By working together, they completed the exercise within the required time. On the 3rd night, during a particularly challenging exercise in the surf zone, Sarah demonstrated why her instructors had begun to see her potential. The candidates were required to link arms and move as a unit through heavy surf while carrying their boats. The waves were 6 feet high, and the combination of cold water darkness and exhaustion had several candidates on the verge of quitting. As the team struggled through the crashing waves, Sarah noticed something that the others had missed. 5 wave patterns had a rhythm, and there were brief moments between sets where the water was calmer. She began calling out timing to her teammates, telling them when to move forward and when to brace for incoming waves. Wait for it now. See, she would call, and the team would surge forward during the calmer moments. Her ability to read the water conditions helped the team complete the exercise more efficiently than any other group. When they reached the beach, exhausted but successful, instructor Peterson approached Sarah. "Martine, how did you know when to move out there?" "The waves have patterns," Sarah explained, her voice from shouting instructions over the surf. "Once you understand the rhythm, you can work with it instead of fighting it." By the 4th day, only 12 candidates remained. Sarah was among them, but she was reaching the limits of her endurance. Her body ached in ways she had never experienced, and the constant sleep deprivation was making it difficult to think clearly. The defining moment came during an exercise that the instructors called the long swim. Candidates had to swim 2 miles in the ocean at night, navigate to specific coordinates, and return to shore at a designated location. The water was cold, the visibility was near zero, and the current was working against them. Several candidates became disoriented in the dark water and had to be rescued by safety boats. Others simply couldn't maintain the pace needed to complete the swim in the allotted time. Sarah approached the swim with the same methodical thinking she used for all water-based challenges. She studied the current patterns before entering the water and planned a route that would use the ocean's natural movement to help her reach the coordinates. Halfway through the swim, she encountered another candidate who was struggling. Thompson, the teammate who had supported her during the forest exercise, was having difficulty navigating and was beginning to panic in the dark water. Sarah faced a crucial decision. She could continue on her planned route and ensure she completed the exercise successfully, or she could help Thompson, which would risk both of their chances of finishing within the time limit. Without hesitation, Sarah moved closer to Thompson. "Follow my lead," she told him calmly. "Stay close and trust me to navigate." Using her ability to read the water conditions, Sarah guided both herself and Thompson toward the target coordinates. She had to adjust her technique to accommodate his swimming style, and the extra effort required was pushing her to her absolute limits. When they reached the coordinates, Sarah was exhausted, but she still had to navigate back to shore. Thompson was barely able to continue, so Sarah continued to guide him, using her knowledge of the currents to find the most efficient route back. They reached the designated beach location with only minutes to spare. Both collapsed on the sand, completely exhausted, but successful. The safety instructors who had been monitoring the swim looked surprised to see them arrive together. "Martine," called Chief Rodriguez as he approached them on the beach. "We watched your swim on the tracking equipment. You took a longer route than necessary and used extra energy helping Thompson. Why?" Sarah sat up slowly, still catching her breath. "We're supposed to be a team, Chief. Teams don't leave people behind." Chief Rodriguez nodded slowly. "That's exactly the right answer." The final day of Hell Week tested everything the candidates had learned. They were divided into small teams and given complex missions that required them to use all their skills while operating on almost no sleep and with their bodies pushed to their limits. Sarah's team was tasked with a reconnaissance mission that required them to gather information about a simulated enemy position and report back without being detected. The exercise was designed to test their ability to think clearly and work together even when exhausted. Using the skills she had developed throughout training, Sarah took the lead in planning their approach. She studied the target area and identified the best route for gathering the required information while avoiding detection. The mission required patience and careful observation, exactly the skills that Sarah had been developing since childhood, while her teammates provided security and support. Sarah spent hours in position, carefully documenting the activities at the target location. When they returned with complete and accurate information, having successfully avoided detection throughout the entire mission, the instructors were impressed with their performance. Hell Week ended with a ceremony that felt almost surreal after the intense challenges of the previous 5 days. Of the original 32 candidates who had started the program, only 9 remained. Sarah was among them, exhausted but proud of what she had accomplished. Chief Rodriguez addressed the surviving candidates with respect and recognition that they had never heard from him before. You 9 have proven that you have what it takes to be SEALs. You've shown mental toughness, physical capability, and the ability to work as a team under the most challenging conditions. The training is far from over, but you've passed the most difficult test we can give you. As Sarah stood with her fellow survivors, she realized that something had changed in how the others viewed her. The skepticism and doubt from the early days of training were gone. She had proven herself not through size or strength, but through skills, determination, and the ability to help her teammates succeed. The months following Hell Week brought specialized training that would shape Sarah into a complete SEAL operator. The 9 surviving candidates were joined by members of other training classes for advanced phases that covered everything from advanced weapons training to medical skills demolitions and specialized insertion techniques. Sarah excelled in the precision shooting courses. Her natural steadiness and patience made her ideal for long-range marksmanship. While other trainees struggled with the mental pressure of making accurate shots under stress, Sarah found that her ability to remain calm actually improved her accuracy in challenging situations. During one advanced shooting exercise, candidates had to engage targets at various distances while dealing with distractions designed to simulate combat stress. Instructors would fire blank rounds near them, use smoke to obscure their vision, and shout commands that conflicted with their mission objectives. While most trainees saw their accuracy decrease under these conditions, Sarah's performance remained consistently excellent. Her ability to focus completely on her target while filtering out distractions impressed even the most experienced instructors. Martinez: your shooting scores under stress are some of the best we've recorded. Observed. Master Chief Williams, the senior marksmanship instructor: have you considered specializing as a sniper? Sarah had heard about SEAL sniper training, which was even more selective and challenging than the basic SEAL program. The idea appealed to her, but she knew she needed to complete her current training. First, the underwater demolition training presented new challenges that combined Sarah's swimming abilities with technical skills. Learning to place explosive charges underwater while maintaining precise timing and coordination required a different kind of focus than anything she had experienced. During these exercises, Sarah's methodical approach proved valuable again. While other trainees rushed to complete the underwater missions, Sarah took time to ensure her equipment was properly positioned and her timing was accurate. Her careful approach meant that her practice demolitions were consistently successful, while others had to repeat their attempts. The leadership training phase tested the candidates' ability to make decisions under pressure and guide their teammates through complex missions. Each candidate took turns leading missions, while the others followed their orders and dealt with unexpected complications introduced by the instructors. When it was Sarah's turn to lead, she faced skepticism from some candidates who still questioned whether she had the authority and presence needed for leadership in combat situations. The mission she was assigned was particularly challenging. Lead her team in a night infiltration of a heavily guarded facility to retrieve sensitive information. Sarah spent considerable time planning the mission using her observation skills to identify weaknesses in the simulated enemy defenses. She noticed that the guards had patrol patterns that left certain areas unobserved for brief periods, and that there were approach routes that would allow her team to get close without being detected. During the mission briefing, Sarah explained her plan in detail, showing her teammates exactly how they would approach the target and what each person's role would be. Some team members suggested faster, more aggressive approaches, but Sarah explained why patience and careful timing would be more effective. This isn't about being brave or aggressive, she told them. It's about being smart and making sure everyone gets home safely. The mission execution went exactly as Sarah had planned. Her team successfully infiltrated the facility, retrieved the required information, and extracted without being detected. The instructors who had been monitoring the exercise were impressed, not only with the success of the mission, but with how smoothly Sarah had coordinated her team's actions. "Martinez, that was some of the best tactical planning we've seen this year," commented Lieutenant Commander Harrison, who had been observing the exercise. "Your ability to read the situation and develop an effective plan shows real leadership potential." As training progressed, Sarah began to understand that her unique skills were being recognized and valued by her instructors. She was consistently selected for the most challenging exercises and was often paired with the top performers in the class. The final phase of training included joint exercises with active SEAL teams. These exercises were designed to give the trainees experience working with seasoned operators and to allow the instructors to evaluate how well the candidates would integrate with existing teams. Sarah was assigned to work with Team 7, led by Lieutenant Commander Jake Stevens, a veteran operator with 12 years of SEAL experience. Team 7 had a reputation for taking on the most difficult reconnaissance and direct action missions. The first exercise with Team 7 was a complex mission that required them to gather intelligence on a simulated terrorist camp while avoiding detection by a large number of enemy forces. The exercise area covered several square miles of diverse terrain, including forests, rocky hills, and open areas that would be difficult to cross without being seen. Lieutenant Commander Stevens briefed the combined team on their objectives and then asked for input on how to approach the mission. Several of the experienced SEALs suggested different tactics, most involving quick movement and aggressive reconnaissance techniques. Sarah listened carefully to the discussion, but remained quiet until Stevens asked if anyone else had suggestions. "Sir, I'd like to suggest a different approach," Sarah said respectfully. "If I could study the terrain and enemy positions for a few hours, I might be able to find a way to get close enough for detailed observation without risking detection." Some of the veteran SEALs looked skeptical, but Stevens was curious. "What are you thinking, Martinez?" Sarah explained her concept of using natural terrain features and enemy patrol patterns to establish observation positions that would allow them to gather detailed intelligence over an extended period without being discovered. "Most reconnaissance missions try to get in and out quickly," she said. "But if we can establish concealed positions and maintain them for longer periods, we can gather much more detailed intelligence and better understand enemy capabilities and intentions." Stevens considered her proposal. Show me what you mean. Sarah used maps and aerial photographs to demonstrate her approach. She identified locations where she believed they could establish concealed observation posts that would provide excellent views of the target area, while being practically impossible for enemy forces to detect. The key is patience, Sarah explained. Instead of trying to see everything quickly, we position ourselves to observe enemy activities over time and build a complete picture of their operations. Stevens decided to let Sarah implement her plan, but he assigned 2 experienced team members to work with her, to ensure her safety and to evaluate her methods. The mission proved to be a tremendous success. Sarah's team established observation positions that allowed them to monitor enemy activities for over 36 hours without being detected. The intelligence they gathered was far more detailed and useful than what was typically collected during reconnaissance missions. More importantly, Sarah's approach allowed them to identify enemy capabilities and weaknesses that would not have been apparent during a shorter observation period. When the exercise ended, the opposing forces admitted they had never known they were being watched. Martine, I've never seen reconnaissance conducted at this level of detail, Stevens told her after the mission. Your ability to remain undetected while gathering this kind of intelligence is exactly what we need for certain types of operations. The success of that exercise led to Sarah being selected for additional training with Team 7. She worked with them on several more exercises each time, demonstrating her unique abilities and learning from the experience of the veteran operators. As her formal training neared completion, Sarah realized that she had found her place within the SEAL community. Her skills were different from the traditional SEAL profile, but they were valued and respected by the operators she worked with. Chief Rodriguez called her aside for a final evaluation meeting before graduation. Martinez, you've completed one of the most challenging training programs in the military, and you've done it with distinction. Your abilities in reconnaissance and precision operations are some of the best we've seen. But I want to ask you something important. He paused, studying her expression. The teams you'll be joining conduct real operations in dangerous places around the world. Are you prepared for what that means? Are you ready to use these skills in situations where lives depend on your performance? Sarah considered the question seriously before answering. Chief, everything I've learned has been preparing me for that moment. I understand the responsibility, and I'm ready to serve wherever the teams need me. Chief Rodriguez smiled. I believe you are. Welcome to the SEAL community, Petty Officer Martinez. Sarah's first assignment as a fully qualified SEAL brought her to Team 5 based on the East Coast. The team was preparing for deployment to a region where intelligence gathering and precision operations were critical to ongoing missions. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Chen, the team leader, had specifically requested Sarah based on reports of her exceptional reconnaissance abilities. Team 5 consisted of 8 operators, each with specialized skills that contributed to the team's overall capabilities. Sarah was replacing a sniper who had been injured during training, and she quickly learned that the team had developed a reputation for taking on missions that required extreme patience and precision. Martinez, we've heard about your training performance, Chen told her during her initial team meeting. Your ability to conduct extended surveillance operations is exactly what we need for our upcoming deployment. But I want you to understand that working with an established team is different from training exercises. The other team members were professional, but reserved during Sarah's first weeks with the unit. They had worked together for over 2 years and had developed strong bonds of trust and cooperation. Sarah knew she would have to prove herself all over again. This time, in real operational conditions. Her first test came during a training exercise designed to simulate conditions they would face during deployment. The team was tasked with conducting surveillance of a target location for 72 hours while remaining completely undetected. The exercise area was monitored by opposing forces specifically trained to find hidden surveillance teams. Sarah was paired with Rodriguez, a veteran operator who served as the team's communication specialist. Rodriguez had been skeptical about working with someone so new to operational teams, but he was willing to give Sarah a chance to prove her abilities. "Listen, Martinez," Rodriguez told her as they prepared for the exercise. "The reputation you built during training is impressive, but training and real operations are different things. Out here, mistakes can get people killed. I need to know that you can handle the pressure of actual missions." Sarah understood his concerns and respected his experience. "I know I have to earn your trust," she replied. "Just give me the opportunity to show you what I can do." The surveillance position Sarah selected was in a rocky outcrop that provided excellent visibility of the target area, while offering natural concealment from multiple directions. She and Rodriguez established their position before dawn and settled in for what they knew would be a long period of observation. As the hours passed, Rodriguez began to appreciate Sarah's approach to surveillance work. She maintained perfect discipline, never moving unnecessarily, and communicating only when essential information needed to be shared. Her observations were detailed and accurate, and she seemed to notice things that escaped his attention. On the second day, Sarah detected the approach of an enemy patrol that was systematically searching the area for surveillance teams. The patrol was using techniques specifically designed to flush out hidden observers, and several other surveillance teams had already been discovered and eliminated from the exercise. "Raj, we have movement 300 Millert southwest," Sarah whispered. "Four-person patrol with detection equipment. They're working their way toward our position." Rodriguez observed the approaching patrol and realized they were in serious danger of being discovered. The patrol's route would bring them very close to their hiding position, and their detection equipment would likely identify any electronic signatures from their communications gear. "Martine, we need to relocate," Rodriguez said quietly. "If they get much closer, they'll find us." Sarah studied the terrain and the patrol's movement pattern for several minutes before responding. "I don't think we should move. Movement is what they're looking for. If we stay completely still and power down our equipment, they'll pass by without detecting us." Rodriguez was skeptical. "That patrol knows what they're doing. If we stay here, they'll find us." "Trust me," Sarah said simply. "I know how to be invisible." Against his better judgment, Rodriguez agreed to follow Sarah's plan. They powered down all electronic equipment and settled into complete stillness. Sarah seemed to become part of the rocks around them, controlling her breathing and remaining so motionless that Rodriguez could barely tell she was alive. The enemy patrol approached their position and stopped less than 20 feet away. Rodriguez could hear them discussing the area and using their detection equipment to scan for hidden surveillance teams. His heart was pounding, and he was certain they would be discovered at any moment. Sarah remained perfectly still, and her confidence began to calm Rodriguez's nerves. The patrol spent nearly 30 minutes searching the immediate area, sometimes coming within a few feet of their position. But Sarah's selection of the hiding spot and her technique of remaining completely still proved effective. The patrol eventually moved on without detecting them, and Rodriguez realized he had just witnessed something remarkable. "Martine, how did you know they wouldn't find us?" he asked after the patrol was safely out of range. "People see what they expect to see," Sarah explained quietly. They were looking for movement electronic signatures and positions that seemed obviously tactical. Our position looked like natural terrain, and we gave them no movement or electronic signals to detect. By the end of the 72-hour exercise, Sarah and Rodriguez had gathered detailed intelligence on all activities in their target area, while remaining completely undetected. Their report was the most comprehensive of all the surveillance teams, and they were the only team that had not been discovered by the opposing forces. Lieutenant Commander Chen was impressed with their performance. "Martine, your surveillance techniques are unlike anything I've seen before. Where did you develop these methods?" "Mostly from hunting with my grandfather," Sarah replied. "He taught me that patience and understanding your environment are more important than equipment or aggressive tactics." Word of Sarah's performance during the exercise spread throughout the SEAL community. She began receiving requests to share her techniques with other teams and was invited to assist in developing new training programs for surveillance operations. Her breakthrough moment came during a real-world mission, several months into the deployment. The team was tasked with gathering intelligence on a high-value target who was believed to be planning terrorist activities in the region. Previous attempts to gather information on this target had failed because he was extremely security conscious and seemed to detect any surveillance efforts. Sarah proposed a different approach. Instead of trying to observe the target directly, she suggested establishing long-term observation posts that would monitor the general area where he operated. By watching patterns of activity over extended periods, they could learn about his network and habits without ever focusing directly on him. Most surveillance operations try to follow the target, Sarah explained to Lieutenant Commander Chen. But this target has proven he can detect that kind of attention. What if we don't follow him at all? What if we just watch his world and let him reveal himself through his patterns? Chen was intrigued by her approach, but concerned about the time and resources it would require. "Martinez, what you're describing could take weeks or months to produce results. We may not have that kind of time." "Sir, the previous direct approaches have failed repeatedly," Sarah pointed out. "If we continue using the same methods, we'll continue getting the same results. This target is smart and careful, so we need to be smarter and more patient." After consulting with higher command, Chen received approval to attempt Sarah's approach. She was given primary responsibility for planning and executing the surveillance operation, with support from other team members as needed. Sarah spent days studying satellite imagery, local intelligence reports, and previous surveillance attempts to understand the target's operational area. She identified several locations where long-term observation posts could be established without drawing attention from local residents or security forces. The key to her plan was establishing observation posts that appeared to be normal parts of the local environment. Instead of using obvious tactical positions, Sarah selected locations where observers could blend in with local activities while maintaining visual coverage of important areas. One position was established in an abandoned building that overlooked a marketplace where intelligence suggested the target sometimes conducted meetings. Another was positioned near a transportation hub, where vehicles entering and leaving the area could be monitored. A third position covered a residential area, where several of the target's known associates lived. Sarah rotated between the observation posts, spending days at each location and gradually building a detailed picture of normal activities in the area. She documented vehicle patterns, pedestrian traffic, and any activities that seemed unusual or significant. The operation required extraordinary patience. For 3 weeks, Sarah maintained her surveillance without seeing any sign of the target himself. Other team members began to question whether the operation was worthwhile, but Sarah remained confident in her approach. "Intelligence work isn't always exciting," she told Rodriguez during one of their planning meetings. "Sometimes the most important information comes from understanding what normal looks like, so you can recognize when something abnormal happens." Her patience was rewarded during the 4th week of surveillance. While observing from the marketplace position, Sarah noticed a subtle change in the normal patterns of activity. Certain shops closed earlier than usual, some regular customers didn't appear, and there was an increase in vehicles with tinted windows in the area. Sarah recognized these changes as possible security preparations for an important meeting. She maintained her position and increased her level of alertness while remaining completely inconspicuous among the normal marketplace activities. Her patience was rewarded when the target appeared for the first time since surveillance had begun. He arrived in a nondescript vehicle and entered a small cafe that Sarah had been monitoring. Several other individuals arrived separately and entered the same establishment. Sarah was able to photograph all the participants and document the duration and nature of their meeting without being detected. The intelligence she gathered provided the first comprehensive picture of the target's network and activities that coalition forces had obtained. The success of the surveillance operation established Sarah's reputation as an exceptional intelligence gatherer. Her methods were studied and adopted by other SEAL teams, and she began to be specifically requested for missions requiring long-term surveillance and reconnaissance. Lieutenant Commander Chen submitted a report praising Sarah's performance and recommending her for advanced training and leadership opportunities. Petty Officer Martinez has demonstrated surveillance and reconnaissance abilities that are unmatched in my experience, he wrote. Her patient, methodical approach to intelligence gathering has produced results that traditional methods could not achieve. The success of the mission also earned Sarah a new nickname among her teammates. Rodriguez was the first to use it, commenting on her ability to watch and wait for exactly the right moment to strike. "Martinez doesn't just observe," he told the other team members. "She hunts. She circles high above the target, seeing everything, waiting for the perfect moment. She's like a falcon." The nickname stuck, and soon everyone was calling her Falcon. Sarah liked the name because it reflected both her patience as an observer and her precision when action was required. More importantly, it showed that her teammates had accepted her as a valuable member of their community. As her deployment continued, Sarah took on increasingly challenging assignments and began training other operators in her surveillance techniques. She developed training programs that combined traditional military skills with the hunting and observation methods her grandfather had taught her years earlier. Her reputation grew beyond Team 5, and she began receiving requests from other special operations units who wanted to learn her methods. Sarah realized that her unique background and skills were filling an important gap in military capabilities, providing options for missions that required extreme patience and precision. 2 years after earning her nickname, Sarah Falcon Martinez had become one of the most requested SEAL operators for reconnaissance and precision missions. Her reputation had spread throughout the special operations community, and she was frequently called upon for missions that required her unique combination of patience, observation skills, and tactical precision. The mission that would truly test everything she had learned came during her 3rd deployment. Intelligence had identified a terrorist leader who was planning a major attack against coalition forces. The target was extremely security conscious and had successfully evaded capture for over 2 years by constantly moving between safe houses and using sophisticated counter-surveillance techniques. Traditional approaches to locate and capture this target had failed repeatedly. Direct surveillance was ineffective because the target security team was trained to detect and avoid conventional surveillance methods. Attempts to infiltrate his network had been unsuccessful, and several intelligence assets had been compromised. Admiral Patricia Hayes, the commander of special operations for the region, personally briefed Sarah on the mission during a secure video conference. "Falcon, we need someone who can find this target when conventional methods have failed." Admiral Hayes explained, "Intelligence suggests he's operating in a specific region, but we haven't been able to pinpoint his location or predict his movements. Your reputation for patient surveillance and unconventional techniques makes you our best option for this mission." Sarah studied the intelligence files and previous mission reports carefully. She quickly understood why conventional approaches had failed. The target was using techniques specifically designed to defeat traditional surveillance and reconnaissance methods. "Admiral, this target isn't just avoiding surveillance," Sarah observed. "He's actively hunting for anyone trying to watch him. Previous missions failed because they were trying to track a moving target who was designed to detect tracking attempts." "What are you suggesting?" Admiral Hayes asked. "Instead of trying to track him, what if we make him come to us? If we can understand what he needs and where he has to go to get it, we can position ourselves to observe him when he arrives." Sarah's approach required extensive research into the target's operational requirements and logistical needs. She studied his past activities, analyzed his network of supporters, and identified the resources he would need to plan and execute his planned attack. Working with intelligence analysts, Sarah determined that the target would need to meet with specific technical experts and acquire certain materials to carry out his planned operation. More importantly, there were only a limited number of locations in the region where these meetings and acquisitions could take place. Instead of trying to follow the target, Sarah proposed establishing long-term surveillance on the locations where he would eventually have to appear. The operation would require unprecedented patience and coordination, but it offered the best chance of success against this particular target. "The target is smart and careful," Sarah explained to Lieutenant Commander Chen and her team. "But he still has to accomplish his mission, and that creates requirements he can't avoid. If we can identify those requirements and position ourselves to observe when he tries to meet them, we can catch him without ever trying to track his movements." The operation required Sarah and her team to establish concealed observation posts at 6 different locations across the region. Each post had to be maintained for weeks or possibly months, requiring careful planning for supplies communications and personnel rotation. Sarah took responsibility for the most challenging observation post, located near a technical facility where intelligence suggested the target would eventually need to meet with explosive experts. The location was in a densely populated urban area, with heavy security presence making concealment extremely difficult. She established her position in an abandoned building that provided excellent visibility of the target facility, while appearing to be just another empty structure in a neighborhood full of damaged buildings. Sarah created a hide site that was virtually invisible from outside observation, but allowed her to monitor all activity at the target location. For 6 weeks, Sarah maintained her surveillance, documenting normal patterns of activity and waiting for any indication of the target's presence. The operation required extraordinary discipline, as she had to remain in position for days at a time while maintaining constant alertness for any sign of her target. Her patience was finally rewarded when she detected subtle changes in security procedures at the target facility. Additional guards appeared. Certain entrances were closed, and there was an increase in electronic jamming equipment that suggested someone important was planning to visit. Sarah increased her level of observation and prepared to document everything that happened. Her training and experience had taught her that the most important moments often happened very quickly, and she needed to be ready to capture every detail. The target appeared exactly as Sarah had predicted. He arrived in a carefully planned convoy that used multiple vehicles and decoy routes to avoid detection. But Sarah's position allowed her to observe the facility, directly making his counter-surveillance techniques irrelevant. She was able to photograph the target document, his meeting participants, and record detailed information about his security procedures. Most importantly, she observed the target's departure route and was able to provide real-time intelligence to other SEAL teams that were positioned to intercept him. The mission was a complete success. The target was captured, along with several key members of his network, and the planned attack was prevented. The intelligence gathered during Sarah's surveillance provided valuable information about terrorist operational methods and led to the disruption of several other planned attacks. Admiral Hayes personally called Sarah to congratulate her on the mission's success. "Falcon, your approach to this operation was brilliant." Admiral Hayes said, "Your ability to think differently about surveillance and reconnaissance has given us capabilities we didn't know we had. The intelligence community is taking notice of your methods." The success of the mission established Sarah as one of the premier reconnaissance specialists in the special operations community. She was promoted to Chief Petty Officer and was selected for advanced leadership training that would prepare her to lead her own specialized reconnaissance teams. More importantly, Sarah realized that she had found her true calling within the military. Her unique background and skills had allowed her to develop capabilities that were valuable to the most challenging missions the special operations community faced. As she prepared for her next assignment, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her from a small town in Nevada to becoming one of the most respected operators in the SEAL community. Her grandfather's lessons about patience and observation had become the foundation for techniques that were now being taught to other operators throughout the military. The nickname Falcon had become more than just a recognition of her skills. It represented a new approach to special operations that combined traditional military training with unconventional thinking and extraordinary patience. Lieutenant Commander Chen approached Sarah as she prepared to transition to her new assignment. "Falcon, I wanted to thank you for what you've brought to this team." Chen said, "Your methods have changed how we think about reconnaissance and surveillance. But more than that, you've shown us that success often comes from thinking differently about problems, instead of just applying more force or technology." Sarah smiled, thinking about her grandfather and the lessons he had taught her during their walks in the Nevada desert. "Chief, my grandfather always told me that the best hunters aren't the fastest or strongest," she replied. "They're the ones who understand their environment and have the patience to wait for exactly the right moment. It turns out that works in military operations just as well as it does in hunting." As Sarah prepared for her next chapter as a leader in the special operations community, she knew that her journey was just beginning. The skills and reputation she had built would allow her to take on even more challenging missions and to train the next generation of operators who would carry on the traditions of excellence that defined the SEAL community. The nickname Falcon would continue to represent the unique combination of patience, precision, and unconventional thinking that had made her one of the most effective operators in the history of naval special warfare. And somewhere in Nevada, an old man who had taught his granddaughter how to hunt would have been very proud of what she had accomplished. Sarah Falcon Martinez's journey from a small-town girl to a revered SEAL operator unveils a profound life lesson about the power of patience and unconventional thinking in overcoming adversity. Raised in Nevada, Sarah learned from her grandfather Miguel that true strength lies not in speed or force, but in understanding one's environment and waiting for the precise moment to act. This wisdom, honed through desert hunts, became her cornerstone as she faced skepticism and grueling challenges in SEAL training. Despite her small stature and initial doubts from peers, Sarah's ability to remain still for hours, read subtle environmental cues, and guide teammates through perilous missions like navigating treacherous ocean currents or evading detection in dense forests, earned her the nickname Falcon. Her defining moment came during a high-stakes mission where her patient surveillance outsmarted a cunning terrorist leader, saving countless lives. This story teaches us that success often stems from embracing our unique strengths and persisting with quiet determination, even when the world doubts us. In a society that often glorifies speed and bravado, Sarah's journey reminds us to value patience, to listen to the world around us, and to trust in our distinct paths. Her grandfather's lessons echo in our lives. Greatness comes from seeing what others overlook and acting with precision at the right moment. Let Sarah's story inspire you to find strength in stillness and courage in your uniqueness. If this tale of resilience and wisdom touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments. How have patience or unconventional approaches shaped your life? For more inspiring stories that challenge the ordinary, hit that subscribe button and join our community of dreamers and doers. Let's soar together like falcons,